screen behind us. But let's get to this. Baylor's Dave Aranda after the spring game. Remember, he said they would have a decision on the quarterback. It's taken a while. Today he held a press conference. Here's Craig's tweet as soon as Aranda made it happen. Says that they've named Blake Shapen the starting quarterback, and Sawyer Robertson, the transfer from Mississippi State, took the news well. Loves Baylor, will continue to get better. Aranda looks for him to continue working on his ownership and consistency. The future's bright for him. Aranda today met with the media, and I heard him say this as he was walking out the door. He's going to be in Fort Worth tonight for what is an alum-type dinner and get-together, and wanted to make sure that the local media heard this news first about who is the quarterback, at least for now, and going into the 2023 season. Craig was there, Jack was there, I was there, and Craig, your thoughts initially, not a surprise, but your thoughts about the decision now that it's official.
Yeah, well, we knew something was up when they announced this media session yesterday. I mean, there was no real reason for them to do that outside of the kindness of their hearts, which is, certainly possible with Brent Ingram and the, folks over there. We do appreciate the time whenever we do get it, but I couldn't have been alone in thinking, like, they must be announcing something, or he must be, like, ready to say something about the quarterback spot. Because if he wasn't ready to say it today, were we all just going to show up and just, like, I mean, y'all had to expect that, right?
Yeah,
when
I first saw it, I said, yeah, he's finally going to let us know.
So I think we all kind of assumed that, and sure enough, after he had a little bit of an opening remark, he got the first question about the quarterback spot and delivered that information there, and I can't say that I'm surprised. I mean, this was my expectation all along, was that Blake Shapen would be the starting quarterback entering next year. I just wasn't sure when they were going to do it, when they didn't do it right after spring. I thought that might be like a post-spring game type of announcement, and then here we are, and it's like 4 or 5 weeks later, and, we hadn't heard anything, so I thought, okay, well, maybe they're going to take it into the fall. But, they decided not to, and I'm super appreciative, first of all, that Dave Aranda even thought about the fact that he's going to go break that news later on tonight to some alumni, and he decided to let us know since we cover them on a daily basis. Like, that was very thoughtful of him to take us into account like that. But, yeah, not surprised. I think this is the right move. If Sawyer Robertson had been clear away a better quarterback throughout spring ball, had outperformed Shapen in the spring game, had he left no doubts, then, that's understandable. But that wasn't the case. I mean, he performed well. He did what he was supposed to do. He got better along the way. There were a lot of positive remarks about him. But there was nothing that led you to believe that he was just a far superior, or even just point blank, just a better quarterback right now. He's still learning the system. He's still somewhat of a young guy. He's in a different offense than he was in these last several years, because it wasn't just at Mississippi State with Mike Leach. It was also his high school running the air raid. So, he is adjusting to some things. And so, there's just little deals like that added up, and with Shapen's experience at the helm as well, I just figured Shapen's going to be the guy to start things off. And I think that's cool because, if he doesn't perform, sink or swim, then you pivot and Sawyer Robertson's your guy. But I felt like for Sawyer to be the guy, having just come in a few months ago, he really would have had to have wowed them and been the clear-cut guy to get the nod. And then I think that would have left you in a really weird position potentially. Not that Shapen would really have a lot of time to go anywhere, but like I said previously when we've had these conversations, he could still just decide, all right, I'm going to play baseball now, Whereas with this way, he starts, he plays until they don't feel like he's deserving of the spot anymore, and then it's Sawyer. But the reverse way, I think, could have gotten a little bit more complicated unless Sawyer was just so much clearly better. So makes sense, and looking forward to see what Shapen can do.
We will hear from Aranda on part of the decision-making or other decision-making. Paul, your reactions to Blake Shapen. If you would have said, okay, you lose whatever you have left on the decision, I would have put everything on Blake Shapen because to me the odds were that he would be the guy. That doesn't mean that there aren't some tweaks along the way and maybe a decision that can surprise us. But this is probably the safe decision. And by the way, Blake Shapen and Baylor think this is the right decision. Of course, the coaching staff too.
Yeah, I think this is where they are. I mean, look, Sawyer Robertson's been here for a semester at this point. That's it. So this offense and the one he came from with Mike Leach are drastically different. And I think he performed well enough overall that he didn't even have to you can have that discussion where maybe he's moved into a conversation about the starting quarterback, but realistically, Blake Shapen has a better grasp on the offense. He's been in it for multiple years now, and that's who you need to start the season with, and you need to start the summer workouts with that guy, with that intention right away, right? So I think that's good. I do think, though, that they're in a better situation if and when Blake Shapen gets injured, in that I think Sawyer Robertson might be able to run the offense a little bit more fully than they were comfortable with Kyron Drones last year for whatever reason. So I think that they can maybe hit the ground running a little bit better should there be an injury to Blake Shapen, which they have to be really prepared for because he has been the starter for 2 stretches during his career, and he's been injured in both stretches.
Well, let me tell you this. The Baylor fan base, how much you want to bet, and here's one of the chats from Lance. Shapen was the number 9 QBR out of 10 teams in the conference. If Aranda won't pull him last year, what makes you think he will this year? Seems like no matter how bad he is, Aranda will just allow it. And that's what a lot of people thought maybe at the end of 2020, the COVID year, 2-7, that ran Charlie Brewer basically into the fans' dungeon. With all the visceral, I guess you could say, an anger towards Charlie Brewer with the loyalty of Dave Aranda. So there's one of the comments in the chat. Thanks to Lance. Appreciate, Lance, you watching, and one of our sponsors, by the way, of the show.
Yeah, I mean, I think that if he doesn't perform well, then you've got a clear-cut number 2 guy that you feel pretty confident about. And I don't know that you could have said that about Kyron Drones last year. We don't know where Kyron Drones was in the development stage, right? I mean, here's a guy who, I don't know, I think some people, not Lance necessarily, but some people probably would have predicted when he went to Virginia Tech he'd be the starter, huh? And he's not. So clearly he's not ready to be the starter in Blacksburg either. And so there's, some development that still has to take place there. With Sawyer Robertson, there's some development that still has to take place there. And Blake's just further developed. And you have who you have, Like, you don't just get to go and say, well, I don't like this guy. I want something different, like it's a vending machine or something. I mean, you recruit and try to get as many good choices as you possibly can. But, I mean, Blake Shapen's their best option right now. And you may not like that, and that's understandable. You may feel like they should have somebody better, but he is their best option. And, I know that last year left a bad taste in people's mouths, but players can improve. They can learn. They can grow. And I know there's some parts of his game that, people feel like aren't necessarily – areas that can grow exponentially or be night and day from what they were. And you know what? That's part of what they'll have to deal with. And so I think we'll see them go out there at the beginning of the year. He'll know what he's doing. He'll be the most well-prepared quarterback they have on the roster, should be, and you hope he'd be. And, if he doesn't perform out the task, then I think that they eventually do make the call to move off of him. But I just think it makes more sense to do it this way than to throw the young guy in there and then just, see how he does. And then what happens, because that's my thing, is like if Sawyer Robertson goes in there and like 2 games in, he's like, 2 touchdowns and 6 interceptions, well, then what? Then you're begging for Blake Shapen all of a sudden, aren't you? So I like that you're kind of protecting Sawyer. You're not keeping him behind glass or anything, but you just got him waiting in the wings and learning. And, if he needs to be called upon, they'll call on him. I don't have any doubts about that. I think Dave Aranda knows, too, like this isn't like he's not on the hot seat of any sort, but he's also not stupid. And so I don't think he's going to, trot Blake Shapen out there game after game after game if it's not looking good and it's on him, and not pivot if he has the opportunity to do so. Because, last year, some of that was on him. Not all of it was, though.
No, it wasn't.
Not all of it was, and he took all of the blame, though.
Just like 2020, it wasn't all on Charlie Brewer, but the offense was so inept that everybody, of course, points to the quarterback, who gets too much credit, also too much blame. From Chuck, and then we're going to get to what Aranda actually said about the 2 quarterbacks with Blake Shapen and Sawyer Robertson. Baylor will have another losing season with Shapen starting. Scotty B, Chuck, let us wait and see what happens. Before he got dinged up early last year after a nice start, he was really tremendous at the end of 2021. And then, of course, Gary Bohannon started in the Sugar Bowl, who came back from after he had been injured. What was it, ankle against TCU when Shapen came in and Kansas State, hamstring. Shapen came in and really finished well and played incredible in the Big 12 championship win against Oklahoma State.
No, I mean, I get the angst and stuff. I get that he doesn't have, like, some huge fan base, man. This is so reminiscent of, like, Charlie Brewer. It's like people just dig their heels in on somebody and refuse to believe that this person's capable of performing well, and I'm just not there yet. I was there at the end of Charlie's tenure because we had seen enough. Like, we had seen all we needed to see. We had, like, multiple seasons of proof to say, like, all right, he's tapped out. We've seen Shapen for a little over a season. So I'm not ready to – I know he's not going to turn into Joe Montana, and he's damn sure not going to turn into Patrick Mahomes. Like, you have the skill set you have, but I do think he can improve in some areas, and I don't think he's got to go out there and win games by himself either. I think that he's got a better supporting cast around him on paper, and I know that doesn't mean anything necessarily, but I'm willing to give him a chance, and obviously the coaches are as well. But, yeah, like, look, I'm not going to sit here if it's week 3 and he's struggling. I'm not going to sit here and just, like – hold the line. I mean, yeah. I'll call it like y'all do and say, no, we got to rip him out of here, and they got to give Sawyer Robertson a chance. But I just don't think right now to start next season, like, it has to be Sawyer Robertson or it's a world of trouble.
And I don't know if you have to make a decision right now, which is also a part of it, but he did, and he said it. And this is a couple of minutes long with Dave Aranda explaining the decision on Blake Shapen being told he was the top quarterback in the depth chart room or in the quarterback room.
Have you decided on a starting quarterback?
We have, yeah. We had a talk with both Blake and Sawyer, I think, the week after the spring game, and so we named Blake the starter. And I had a really good talk with Sawyer and Blake at that time. And, you know, the reasons for all of that, twofold. One is I thought, you know, Sawyer really progressed and got better at the end of spring. You know, I think things settled down for him and everything. And I have to imagine he's going to continue to get better. And so, you know, in talking with Sawyer, it's like, hey, man, way impressed with you. Your future here is really bright. You know, hey, it's a big old thing. Just take it one step at a time and keep your head down. You're going to be great. With Blake, like, his consistency and his overall improvement was way impressive. And then his leadership and the growth there was impressive. And, you know, I'd have to, from y'all's perspective, I can see in that spring game where it probably, you know, could have been this or could have been that. And I think overall the spring with Blake was really good. And his leadership was much improved. And so, you know, I think he earned it, would be one. And two would be, you know, I think moving into the summer and just kind of into fall camp is that we want to help solidify with Blake that, hey, this is your team. You know, you've done all the work, you've earned it. We just talked about kind of being in a pit and kind of rising up. And I think that's the whole thing. I think, you know, for me, I mean, how many times has that been me, you know? And then you look at our players and you just, when guys are in that position, to give them the opportunity to climb out that thing and be the new them. And I think that's what Blake's doing, and I'm way proud of him. And so want to give him the stage to be able to assert himself completely. He's the guy, this is his team, take us into summer and fall, give us the best shot to start it off. So excited for that. You know, I thought talk with all of them both went well. And talking to Sawyer, I guess, hey, how you feel with all of it? And he goes, Coach, I love Baylor. It's where I want to be. You know, you're going to continue to see me get better. And we all knew that, you know, that's the case. And I'm sure that we will see him continue to get better.
All right, that's Dave Aranda this morning at the bank on the campus at Baylor University, where you could see all the construction, the indoor being extended, and of course the football ops building right there on the Brazos, and it's just stuff everywhere. So we appreciate again the time. We have Grayson coming up after this segment. We'll break and come back with Grayson as he and Craig did Bearcast today that will air throughout the afternoon and also the next few days.
Yeah, you see how close the indoor is to the bank? That's kind of wild.
Yeah.
It's like right, I mean, it's right on top of each other.
The parking is going to be, always was a challenge, and now becomes even more so of a challenge with it less space to park your car, which used to be an area in front of it.
Yeah, it's just it's a little more jam-packed, a tight fit there near the bank and the indoor, because they're extending the indoor for those who know what I'm talking about there. But, yeah, it was interesting to see the progress they've made there just in the last 5 or 6 weeks since spring ended, because they've added like another 20 yards to that thing or whatever. But cool to see that, and look, I definitely understand the doubters and those who are not like super amped up by today's news, but it's a big decision. I think Dave Aranda is a smart guy. Jeff Grimes is a smart guy. Everybody else involved in that decision are smart football people. And I think a big important thing Aranda said there was, I can understand from a media perspective and y'all just seeing the spring game and having an opinion, but he did watch him for 15 whole practices, and so did Bell, and so did Grimes, and so did everybody else. So they are working with a more complete picture. We're working with like a corner, and then, pretending like we know how the rest of the painting goes. They've got the full meal deal in front of them that they're working with. So you have to trust that. If you trust the coaches, then I think it'll make you feel a little bit better. And if you don't, you don't. And we'll see soon enough. Right around the corner, the season's coming. So, he's going to sink or swim, but he will be the guy that's in the pool first.
A lot of good stuff on the chat room about